Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Upshift podcast, the podcast that is, of course, all about Formula Racing. Today, we are here to review the Austrian Grand Prix, the one that happened last week, but it has been a week. But I've been super busy in my personal life. I've been having to do stuff all day, and then we come home at night, and I just don't feel like doing the podcast. But today, we are doing the podcast, and we are here to review the Austrian Grand Prix a week late. But it was a truly good race. It's much better than last week. Much better than the Austrian Grand Prix, where Max was just out front and nothing really happened in the back of the field. But things happened in the midfield, kind of the front of the field. The entire field there's mix-ups, there was battles, it was awesome. And Lando Norris qualified in second place for the start of the race. And he ended up keeping that position for a while until the safety car restart, where Sergio Perez seemed to be being right there, and he was about to attack with Lewis Hamilton. But Lando ended up forcing him off a bit like Lewis Hamilton did on Alexander Albon. But this time there wasn't much contact. And to be honest, I don't feel like the penalty was warranted. In my personal opinion, I don't think it was very fair. I think it should have been a black and white flag, personally. But the past is the past, so we can't really change it. But I feel like Lando would have gotten P2 if he... no, he definitely would have gotten P2 by like 2 seconds. If he did not get that 5-second time penalty from Sergio Perez. But later in the race, actually that a few corners before that, Esteban Ocon got his suspension broken. His suspension broken when he was in a sandwich with the Williams and I think the Williams or Haas and Antonio Giovinazzi. I believe it was Schumacher. It was Schumacher or Mazepin. No, it was Schumacher. It was squeezed between Schumacher, and the suspension was like putty. It just broke immediately, like not even that much contact. It just broke. It was odd to see. It's definitely not what we're used to seeing, because obviously there's been contact before, and obviously the suspension breaks all the time, but not that little tiny bit of force. So I don't know. It was a very odd incident, but Esteban Ocon leaves Austria not a happy guy. But later we actually see George Russell, who made it into Q3 for the first time in his F1 career in Williams, because remember in Mercedes he got P2. Qualified P2. He got his first Q3 appearance with Williams in P9, and ended up being P8 after I believe Sebastian Vettel got a 3-place grid penalty. He ended up losing positions to both the Aston Martins, and I want to say I think it was Ricciardo. I believe it was Ricciardo. Yeah. And Ricciardo had a horrible qualifying, but definitely did crawl back, I believe, into P6. Disappointing so far this season for Daniel Ricciardo, but he seems to have a little bit more... P7 for Daniel Ricciardo. A little bit more pace than he did in the previous rounds, but he just really needs to step it up, because Lando's running away with this team battle. So it's looking a bit up. It's looking a bit bad for Daniel. But Lando Norris ended up getting P3, actually getting yet another podium to add to his collection so far this year. And he's definitely my driver of the year so far. He has 101 points, which is only 3 behind Sergio Perez with 104 points. That is the battle for P3 in the Drivers' Championship. So it's weird. It's so weird to see a McLaren be that good so fast. It's so cool to see, because I love Lando Norris. He's such a talented driver, and in my opinion, he's going to be a world champion. It's just so cool to see, and I think he will. This is a bit of a hot take, but I think he will get his first ever F1 win this year some point. But going later in the race, Sergio Perez actually had another incident with Charles Leclerc within the race, where he just forced him off, like, fully. Like, look at this clip. I'll show you the clip on screen right now. Look at that. It's completely forcing off. There's no like subtlety of it. That's a blatant. He knew what he was doing there. And then a few corners later, in a few laps, he did the exact same thing where he forced Charles Leclerc off yet again. So what is happening with Sergio Perez in that specific race? Because we have not seen that with Sergio this whole year, where he just loses all composure and forces people off. It was odd to see. Like a lot of things this race, it was odd to see. But it was because he ended up getting 2 5-second time penalties for both those incidents. It was just, what are you doing, man? It was just stupid. It was a stupid move. It was a stupid defense. And Lando's, you could argue Lando's was the same. And I would say yes and no, because Lando's didn't have that much contact. He had contact, but not that much contact. And that much blatancy, I guess. And I'm not trying to be, like, biased towards Perez, because I don't particularly like Perez. If that was literally any other driver, that's a no-no. That's a clear no-no. You never do that in F1. You have too much. It's high speed. It's just too much risk with that defense. So very bad moves from Sergio Perez. We saw some really good battles. We actually saw Lando Norris and Lewis for a while. Lewis got past Lando, and then Lewis made the comment, such a great driver Lando is. So good, some good words from the world champion to Lando. That was a pretty good battle for a while. Bottas came up to the back of Lewis. Lewis didn't really defend that much, and then they ended up getting into a tiny little battle, though. But Valtteri ended up getting past, and ended up Lando getting past for P3. I tried to chase down Valtteri Bottas in P2, but ultimately did not. So Lando ultimately lost out to Valtteri Bottas again. I think if he didn't get that 5-second time penalty, I think it would have changed. I think it would have been a bit different. I think he probably would have gotten P2, his best result of his entire F1 career. But that was a pretty good battle. There's another battle. I believe it was Alonso and George Russell for the last points position. George Russell was hanging on in P10 for such a while, but Alonso came along, and he had to overtake him. He couldn't just not overtake him. But Alonso, after the race, said that when he got up into P10 and he saw who was in P10, he had hoped it was anyone else but George Russell. So good words from the world champion Fernando Alonso, and some very good defense, a good clean battle between those guys. And Alonso said that George was a really good driver as well after the race. So again, good words from the world champion. And a few laps later after that battle, coming to the end of the race, Kimi and Sebastian had a weird crash where it seemed like they this is Kimi and then this is Seb, and they kind of just came together. I feel like I don't think a 20-second time penalty was fair for Kimi, in my personal opinion. But I don't know. I feel like it was a bit too harsh towards Kimi. And I think it should have been much less. But it's already decided. So Kimi had a 20-second time penalty. But here are the results from the race, if I can get them up here. In last and DNFing is Esteban Ocon, followed by Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher. Sebastian Vettel Nicholas Latifi, Kimi Raikkonen, Antonio Giovinazzi, Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, Alonso, Gasly, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, Valtteri Bottas, and the winner is Max Verstappen. His first Grand Slam of his entire career, which is, I believe, fast lap, lead every lap, win, and I believe get pole position? I don't remember. I think that's it. I think that's it. But Carlos Sainz also had a very, very, very good race. I believe he went from P10 to P5. That is a very good result and very promising for the Spaniard going forward through this year. He has had such a great year in his first year with Ferrari, so we'll definitely see how his year plays out for the rest of this season. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you everyone for watching or listening if you're just on audio. Driver of the day. The Upshift Driver of the Day award goes to Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, you get my Driver of the Day. I feel like if Lando got the P2, he would have been Driver of the Day for the Upshift award. But I feel like Carlos had just too good of a race to have Lando be it. So, Carlos, you win yet another. I believe this is your second or third Upshift Driver of the Day award. So congratulations. It means nothing, but it's something. So thank you everyone so much for watching. See you around Wednesday-ish for the George Russell commentary video. So thank you everyone for watching. Bye-bye.